Welcome to Spa! So hello, welcome back to the channel. We are here at finally sunny Spa in Belgium at the Porsche Track Experience. Now, you may not have heard of this because apparently not many people that I've spoken to have, which is blowing my mind because the event that I'm at right now allows you to, wait for this, rent the very latest Porsche GT product directly from Porsche, managed by Manthey Racing, and get on track in this for the whole day. Now, I don't know why I've not really heard of this. I think there's something, certainly on our side of the pond, which makes you think that the only way of getting into one of these cars is by working your way up the ownership ladder and then being gifted by the Porsche gods an allocation on a new 992 GT3. And that is the case if you want to own one. However, if you want to track one, if you want to drive one, you can literally speak to Porsche, speak to Manthey, and you can come here and have a full day going flat out around Spa and other multiple circuit locations around the world during the year to your heart's content. Now, I'm going to put a link in the description below because the value actually is quite remarkable. Now, for this car today begins at around about €4,500. Now, don't get me wrong, €4,500 is €4,500. However, to get in that, I mean, it's factory fresh. It's got a couple of 100 kilometers on it. It doesn't stop there. You can start from the beginning. They have over 150 GT products that you can jump into. So if you wanted to start in a GT3 RS, and then you can go into a GT3, and then into the latest GT3 RS, and then on this day it is split between track day car sessions, or like road legal car sessions, and then race car sessions. And you guessed it, you can rent race cars as well. So in a minute I'm going to hop into the new 992 Cup car. Once again, you can just phone up and book that. If you're feeling particularly adventurous, you can get into a GT3R, or wait for it, an RSR. You can just come and rent one. I mean, that's nuts. There are a few steps and race licenses and experience that you need to get in order to achieve unlocking a GT3R or an RSR. But the fact is, you can get into the same platform that Kevin Estre was racing at Le Mans. Unbelievable. And the hospitality, the team, every time I drive in, an incredible team from Manthey comes out of there, out of those doors, and comes and checks the car, the pressures, the tires, make sure everything's cool. Just unbelievable.
For some reason, I'd never actually heard of these events held by Porsche. Is it the best kept secret in automotive experiences? Maybe. And you can bring your very own Porsche to take on track if you prefer, along with some expert coaching if you fancy learning the lines. But most impressive, aside from the fact that you can rent an RSR, is the hospitality. At all the top GP tracks that these events are held at, Porsche construct the mobile Porsche experience, which means awesome food and awesome people.
It's a remarkable, incredible feeling. Feeling the aero hook up. And it's the aero which allows this car to have such initial ferocious braking points and bite. With all that downforce at high speed into a braking zone, you know, you've got almost 860 kilograms of downforce pushing the tires in, like right now. Flat, flat, flat. Little lift. Control the body, back on the gas. Run a little bit wide. Good Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, this thing wears number plates. It's a road legal car. You could go through a McDonald's drive-thru in this thing and then come and lap Spa like you're in a GT3 Cup car. It's going to be a couple of seconds off it in the right hands, but honestly, you're splitting hairs. With a set of Cup 2Rs on it, it will destroy any set 65 kilometers an hour at the braking point. You're braking where the cup cars brake. You're braking where the cup cars brake on slicks. Entering there with incredible momentum. The steering loads up wonderfully. And it just gets thicker the more aero you push through it. If you can push through the aero window and switch the car on, it's when it really comes alive. Wow. I'd go so far as to say you would benefit from a fitted seat in this car. I mean, again, I'm talking about it like it's a race car. Wow, look at that. Straight back on the throttle, flap, 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 flap to the left. 9,000 RPM, smash on the brakes. Huge aero stability under braking, not a twitch. Riding the curves like as if it's got fat sidewall slicks on. The magic, the DNA, the culture of Porsche, the feedback from Manthey. This has got the sweat of Kevin Estre in the Alcantara, and we're lapping Spa like a driving god. By the grace of Stuttgart, what have you made? Wow! I don't know what to say. I don't know. It's like a naturally aspirated Senna. What more do you want than that? Whoa. The sound as well, naturally aspirated. Pinned through a rouge, ride the curves. The direction change is astounding. It gives you so much confidence. DRS, you can visibly see it. There's a moment when you actually feel the aero slowing the car down. And if you let it get into that window where it's stalling out and then hit DRS, it's visible, it's physical. You can literally see the numbers rise. Honestly. Now this is fascinating. Following a 992 GT3 through here, you can see the stability isn't quite there. I'd love to see what a Manthey kit on a 992 GT3 is like. It's going to improve it, but I just can't see it getting as close as this. It's the invisible stuff that you can't see is what makes this thing so special. That stuff's called aero. Wow, I think it's probably time for a cool down lap.
Honestly, this thing's unbelievable. I'd be interested actually, let's just check the temperatures on these tyres. Like no heat in this at all. I'm actually blown away by that. There's still a lot of water on the track. The race cars that went out prior to us have created somewhat of a dry line, and in parts there's a dry line, but it's a cold surface. And even if you've got basically this half of the track, there's dry line, which is good. The other half is still damp, and any temperature you get in, it cools right off. Genuinely, I am astounded at the grip on these cold tires. Massive amount of aero, but we are running on Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s. What this must be like on a set of Cup 2Rs with temperature in, with this amount of downforce. Available, the right setting on the right circuit or right corner, 860 kilograms of downforce. That is more than a McLaren Senna, for a spot of context. And yet it's only just over 500 horsepower, 510 horsepower-ish. And it just shows, I mean, Porsche have maintained 500 to 510 horsepower for GT3 products for 2-3 generations of car now. Close relationship that Michelin have with Porsche and Porsche have with them. The grip, I honestly expected to come out here and touch those and them to be fairly hot. They're stone cold, and I cannot believe the lateral load we're pulling through some corners just puts a massive smile on your face. It's incredible. Okay, so give you a top line overview of what this thing actually is. The general vibe is less weight, more power, but in the instance of the 992 Generation 3 RS, it's also more downforce. I think really the defining feature of this car is the aero. In terms of transmission speed, in terms of engine experience, it's very similar to a 991 Gen 2 GT3 RS, but it kind of stops there. Underneath, everything entirely brand new. When I say the emphasis is on the aero, it's not just about its top available figure of 860 kilograms, which is more than the Cup car which we are about to drive. It's the way they've done it. So they've really inherited learnings from the GT3R and the GT3 RSR race program, which is why this car is now so extreme and so uncompromising in its purpose that they have removed the once iconic frunk. That means there is no bonnet in the front of this. Under here is pure cooling. The reason for that, this is learnings that have been taken down from the RSR program. A massive amount of aero is driven by what's going on behind this front splitter here. So one of the things you can't actually see is that the double wishbones themselves have been sculpted with aero in mind, which means that the wishbones are an actual downforce component of the car, which is ridiculous. So in order for the air to travel through here and hit those, a conventional GT3 and the previous generation GT3 RS would have had cooling radiators here and on the opposing side, but because you need the air to flow through, being able to interact with the aero components, they've consolidated it into one massive radiator which sits behind these vents here, taking up what was all of the available space in the front. And one of the really big reasons for that dramatic aero revision at the front is, of course, the dramatic aero revision at the back. The amount of downforce that this creates is important to keep it balanced front to rear. If you just put on a big wing and don't compensate the balance of aero front and back, you're basically going to have a lot of uneven weight pressing down on the back of the car due to this colossal wing. But what's really trick about this, it's the first time that there has been active aero on a Porsche RS product, which means if you see these little actuators here, this is DRS, that name that you are familiar with from Formula One. That is a drag reduction system, and depending on your throttle angle, your RPM, and the speed and trajectory of the car, and the G's you're pulling, if you are under 0.9 G of load through the car, you're able to activate manually on the steering wheel with a DRS button this wing. And the idea is, you can see my hand through there, this is currently in its DRS activated mode, which means this flap is now horizontal. But when you're after maximum attack and maximum aero out on track, you close or deactivate DRS. This pivots up like that, closing that gap, creating a much larger surface area, effectively switching on this wing. By and large, its overall shape is very similar, of course, to a GT3. 992 GT3, you never step out of that thing going, do you know what that thing needs is more grip. how they've managed to find that much grip. The lateral load on this, even on cold tires, blows my mind. So what I'm fascinated in is that the car we're about to drive, which just so happens to be this exact 992 Cup car here, actually has less downforce than this car, but is capable of achieving faster lap times. And a lot of that is due to the Michelin sticky slicks. Now the rain stopped, I think we're actually going to be able to go out on those. But I'm really interested in comparing mechanical grip and slick grip versus aero grip on a road legal tire versus a Michelin slick track only tire. As far as days go, it's blowing my mind, but the thing that is scrambling me the most is that I've only learnt about this service over the last few months. We found out about it when we took our Porsche to Manthey at the Nürburgring, got talking, and I was like, I have to come down and experience this. One of those reasons was because we only got to really drive the GT3 RS on Dunsfold circuit back in the UK, which is okay, but it's not a thoroughbred circuit, and that is a thoroughbred car. But when they said you can hire a Cup car, I mean, you don't just do that. Honestly, I can't tell you what a magical experience this is, but if you think this is special, come and check out this. So around the corner here, you can rent this thing. I mean, there are some stipulations. If you're not familiar, what we're stood in front of is a Porsche 911 RSR. Now, this is a full-fat, full-blown endurance racing car. This platform would have qualified for racing at Le Mans in the 24-hour. This is the kind of car that Kevin Estre would have raced. And for whatever reason, Porsche have managed to put together a program where you can turn up, and if your qualifications behind the wheel are suitable to the platform of this car, this is about as serious as it gets before you go to an LMP car. I just think it just blows my mind that you're able to do that. Now, this is actually the previous generation car. Behind us, we have a GT3R. Now, this platform, the GT3R, is something which is going to be more widely available as a broader racing platform going forward. This is the previous gen car. The 992R, you'll be able to race it in all sorts of different categories all around the world. But once again, the reason it's in this garage is, you guessed it, you can turn up on this Porsche Track Experience day and get in that car. I mean, this for me is one of the all-time greatest GT racing cars. Full stop, period. And if you want to, you can pick up the phone and ask Porsche how to get in this thing. Why have I just learned about this? It's absolutely insane.
So yes, all in all, an absolutely incredible day. But that's not all. Stay tuned for the next video where we hop into the new Porsche 992 GT3 Cup car and experience it fresh off the back of the GT3 RS to see how it compares around sunny Spa.